welcome to my studio. Today we are going to have some more crafty fun. I am playing with these gorgeous little cuties here. We're going to make a fun journal page with some really simple and easy colouring techniques using watercolours. So grab your paints and craft along with me. So before we get crafting, I was just wanting to show you what is in this bundle. This is a big bundle and it is going to be a crazy reasonable price. And these are fairly new stamps, so to have them in a bundle is just mental. I don't know what I was thinking. Basically, I wanted to play with them. So we have the gorgeous Mechanical Mayhem stamp collection. So we've got Tech Cuties, Big Bot, A Bot's Best Friend and Innovation. We also have the Marvelous Mechanics die set. And then we have some of the words from the Steampunk Stories collection. They are really useful in your journals. We have some 3 large MDF cogs. We have a little packet of metal charms as well. The Steampunk Stories paper pad. And the cool one of the MDF junk bots there, which is so cool. We've got measuring tapes in here and large cogs, so you can build it as is, or you can sort of divide it and do what you want with it. Remember, with these bundles, they make great gifts as well. If you've already got parts of it, you could pull it apart and gift some of it that you've already got, or if you fancy trying mixed media and you've not done it before, this would be a really good way of kind of dipping your toe in without spending an awful lot of money. Anyway, without further ado, we're actually going to do that journal page that we talked about, so let's just get started. Well, I have decided to work in my Studio Light journal today. I love this journal. I love the fact that I can take the pages out to craft with them, so it means that you are not damaging the pages underneath. It also means if you want, you can make your pages a little bit more 3D, because you're not going to make the book really fat so that it won't close, or make your pages wobbly for future pages, if that makes sense. Not that we're going 3D today, we're actually doing a 1 layer page. So I have used the Innovation stamp set and I am just stamping that down. I've actually used a hybrid ink pad for this because I'm going to be using both watercolours and pencil on this. So my idea that I had for this page was that the little robots were building some sort of machine or something or other, and they're trying to reach each other. So they've both got bits going on their side of the page, and they're trying to build a bridge almost, or get connected to each other. So I've got the little sort of round robot at the top and the wee calculator one looking at the bottom, and then because we've got all these odds and ends, we can really build up the picture. And it was a great fun doing this actually, because I love scene building, but normally when you do scene building you've got to do a lot of masking techniques, whereas this you didn't. You could just stamp next to or beside and you were able to build up something really intricate and fun. So I like that. We've also got the cogs sort of going across the page, so we're trying to connect the 2 pages together. I'm using my Kuretake Ganzi Tambi, so we are just using a really simple technique to colour up the robots today. I'm literally just using 1 colour on each robot of the paint, just sort of putting it down a little bit thicker on one side and then using water to pull the colour across. That way we still get sort of shades and tones and variation, but we're not putting a lot of work and effort into doing that. And I am also just doing the same with this little guy here, but this one we are going for a orange look. So this is going to be the only colour on the page. The little robots are going to be coloured and the rest of the page is going to be monochrome. And I am creating that monochrome look with the same paints. So I've just sort of dipped it into the black. I am going around the edges of the design. I just sort of keep going until the paint runs out. Again, that's going to give me variation of colour. And then once most of the paint is off the brush, I am going back with a little bit of water and just dragging out. I do add a bit of extra paint in some areas if I feel it could do with a bit more depth or darkness. So this is me really trying to play and experiment with other mediums. I am really comfortable with my alcohol markers and really comfortable with a certain colour palette, and I find that I go for them all the time. But the reason that I'm really comfortable with alcohol markers is because I took the time to practice and to get to know them. And I've not done that with any other medium. And I've realised this year that I really have stifled myself creatively in doing that. I'm not pushing myself. I'm not trying new things. I'm not experimenting. And when you do that, it just means that you're crafting can just kind of be in a rut and get very staid, and you're not progressing creatively. So this is me really trying to push myself out of my comfort zone and learn new things, and that is definitely going to be my focus for 2024 as well. So hopefully we can maybe do that together. Is there anything in particular that you would like to do more, that you would like to experiment with? Then let's make that a goal for next year, to kind of expand our creativity a little bit, and we can maybe do that together. So again, I'm just building up using the same techniques. I have loads of watercolours as well, so I definitely need to get to know them better and to play a lot more. So you are going to be seeing a lot more variation from me on this channel. Now, the way I wanted to add the detail into my robots, because as you may know, I do like my shades and tones, I have just pulled out some coloured pencils. I'm using my brand new sharpener to get a gorgeous point on that. Look at that, wow. And I've done that with all my pencils, and then I am ready to go. Now, I'm not going to do my posh fancy colouring like I normally do, where I start with a really low pressure and gradually build up. I think I'm using a medium pressure here. I'm just literally putting some scribbles down of some colours. I'm not particularly trying to blend it. I was thinking that if you were to have old metal, it tends to be a variety of different colours anyway. There doesn't tend to be a smooth transition. There's lots of rust and patches of dark right next to patches of light. So to kind of get that feel, I'm not worrying about it overly, which means it is really quick and easy to achieve this look. As we said, one layer of watercolour and then a few scribbles with a pencil. And in a lot of this, I'm actually just like scribbling or cross-hatching. I'm not even trying to blend. But it's just going to add a little bit more detail to these robots, and they are going to really pop off the page because they are the only elements with colour. So for this one, I kept it even more simple. I just put a little bit of colour on the eyes, and then I've got a gold pencil which I've popped into the buttons. As always, I am edging my page. I am struggling. Both those pro markers seem to have kind of dried out, so I need to kind of add some more to my stash, I think, or find some more. I'm sure I've got more lying about somewhere. And I am using the words that are in this bundle as well. And again, I have used 3. I like using 3. It is creatively, it's good. It makes your brain see the page as a whole. And again, because I want this 2-page spread to be seen as a whole, I'm popping the sentiment across the 2 pages. And that's it, popped into my journal there. But this is only part 1 of this video. Okay, so I've just finished this project here, which I am loving. And then in my head, I remembered that I have this in my unfinished projects box. I actually pulled it out when Dawn and I were doing that challenge of unfinished projects. And I said, oh, I want to save this because I've got a release coming this year that it would work perfect with, which was in February, and we're now in November, and I've still not done it. But I was just thinking, in the bundle we have the MDF pieces, and we also have the cogs and things. So actually this project has part of what is in the bundle anyway. I started this so long ago that I started it in, well, I was going to say the old studio. What was the spare room and the old film setup. So I do have footage of how I got to this stage, but it's not under the current setup. But I will sort of take you to this stage from the old footage that I have. I will do my best in the editing stage to make it bearable, and maybe we'll just finish it off, because to be honest, this is so close to being finished. I think we just probably need a bit of dry brushing and to get some of those characters on. So I hope you don't mind, but we're going to make a part 2 of this video and make another project with these gorgeous little cuties. So this was some sort of computer board, motherboard, who knows, fancy bit that goes inside a computer and makes it work. I don't know. As you can tell, I'm not particularly technically minded. This was out of a really old laptop that my husband had sort of pulled apart in desperation to try and fix, but it was beyond repair, to be honest. And so this was sort of sat on the table and I'm looking at it and I'm like, can I have it, please? I mean, look at all that gorgeous texture. It was waiting to be mixed media'd. So as you can see, I punched some holes using the crocodile. That is a shout out to how amazing the crocodile is. Honestly, check it just went through that dead easy. And the first thing I'm doing is covering it in gesso. I do plan on layering more stuff on top, but I also knew that trying to get the gesso into all the nooks and crannies once we were at the full stage would be really difficult. So I just sort of give this one layer of gesso to get started before I start building up the design. So I'm using the MDF pieces to build up the design. I think at the time I was planning on some sort of steampunk project, and that's why I was kind of going with all the cogs. I just like to have a shout out that honestly you can make mixed media out of anything. Yes, I have chosen some mixed media pieces to kind of add to this, but that motherboard on its own would have looked amazing as it was. You can literally create mixed media and texture out of your recycling. Don't feel you have to go and buy all the fancy charms and things. Bit of recycling, bit of gesso, even some cheap paints that you get down from the works or Poundland or something like that. You can make stunning projects. So here I'm just sort of building up the design. This is under my old setup, so we had a little bit of a desk wobble there, so that was fun. It's quite funny actually seeing the old setup. Part of it I'm kind of like, oh, the camera was quite good because we're on to different cameras now. So I am using marble texture paste here, and that is because quite often when I do steampunk I like to get that sort of patina look. It's not the route we end up going particularly, but it just gives that added bit of texture. So I'm sort of connecting all the elements together so that we have a nice composition by using this marble paste. And also there's certain areas that didn't have as much texture as the rest, so just kind of adding that so that we've got texture all over the place. Once that was dry, I gessoed it in black, as you can see, and now we are going over with white gesso. Now I have to say, going back at this stage and watching the edited, you know, whilst I was editing it, I'm looking at that black and white and thinking that looks just lush. How good would it have been if I left it there? So I might actually have to do something like that with the other side of the board, because I think that looks so cool. That would look awesome as a monochrome page. But anyway, I had decided at the time, I think, to show that steampunk didn't have to be dark and grungy. You could have it really bright. So the reason I started with black is that it's really good for your projects if you've got shadow behind it. Now this was so incredibly detailed that to go retrospectively after we'd got all the paint done and try and get dark into all those nooks and crannies and areas would have been a nightmare, and it wouldn't have looked good. But if you put black down first, you've kind of almost created your shadow area first. You're going to, all of those little areas are going to be in shadow because the nature of dry brushing and stuff, the paint is going on the top, not underneath. But I also at the time wanted this colour to be so bright and in your face and that sort of thing. I wouldn't have achieved that brightness if I had painted straight onto the black gesso. Hence why I dry brushed in white first. So we're still going to get that brightness, but we are also going to get that shadowing going on. I mean, I will add extra shadowing once we've got our feature images in, but it did mean that I didn't have to sort of do the whole project and we get that look. I think I am using some indigo blue paints here. I don't have all of those anymore, but I'm pretty sure it was Cinderella, Midnight Blue, and I'm not quite sure what the pink was. And we are using a Yellow Dilutions paint as well. And I'm just sort of putting that all over the board and then leave that to dry. I think I kind of go on quite heavily handed with the blue at the end, which is why we kind of change from those sort of pinks and yellows to the where we had it when we started the project there. But those pinks and yellows are peeking through. We are going back to the dry brushing stage. So again, once we have got all of those elements, the texture sort of disappears once you paint it, but by adding a bit of dry brushing, it just brings that texture to life. So I was showing you there that the paint was about 3/4 of the way up my brush. So we don't have much paint on the brush. We have the paint about 3/4 of the way up, and just sort of flick it over, and that just helps to emphasize the texture. And that is the canvas as we are using it just now. So I've decided to add a little bit of Pebeo gilding wax. I love this stuff. I will link to it in the description box below. I have had this jar since before my daughter was born. So this jar has got to be about 15 years old. I have used it on multiple projects. I have done workshops where 20 odd people have been using it, and I'm still using the same jar. It hasn't gone off, hasn't gone mouldy, and it lasts a long time, and that's because it's furniture grade. So now I have got my little characters. I have done exactly the same technique that we saw on the journal page. I added a wash of watercolour, and then I just added extra details with the pencils. I wanted a little shelf for the wee TV to sit on, so I've taken one of the die cuts that also comes in the kit, and I want it to match the rest of the project, so I am making that black first just by colouring that in with an alcohol marker. Now these dies also have kind of texture on them as well. They've got all the grooves and things, so we can bring that texture out again by using the same gilding wax that we used earlier on in the project. So I'm just running this across. This is what I love about mixed media. This is just a piece of scrap paper that has been run through a die cut, and now it looks like we've got a metal spanner on there. Love it. So here we're kind of getting to the finishing stages. This is what I'm saying about shadowing. I do want a little bit of shadowing under that shelf so that it stands out, and under and around our characters. But with regards to the shadowing, if you look at the cog on the right hand side, you can already see that it's darker underneath that cog. So that's already been done by the fact that we had our black gesso. So I realise that not everyone will have a computer board lying around, but obviously in the product list we did have that robot thing. You could kind of pull that apart if you wanted and add something similar, a bit of texture with cardboard or bits of like bottle tops and things like that. If you don't have any of the extras, just have a hunt around and use what you've got. You can honestly turn anything into a work of art. So I'm just kind of doing the final little touches here. I decided I want the robots to look metallic, so I've gone in with another watercolour paint. This was an iridescent green, and it just gives a kind of pearlized finish, which I think works with the overall project. So we've done two projects today. One that was a really simple journal page, and one that was full-blown mixed media, and they both look gorgeous, so I hope it's provided inspiration. If you want to see more in this particular series, you can check out this video right here.